Annenberg Media.
Science, religion, and common sense have fed the pool of human wisdom. Yet no scientist, saint, or sage has offered an irrefutable answer to the question, what is death? Some say death is a gateway. Others, that it is oblivion. While we may be unable to state that death is any one thing, we seek an understanding of the forms it takes in our lives.
There is no proper definition of death. It's the vast unknown. Philosophically, it is the thing that we cannot know. It runs counter to our normal tendency. We are, as human beings, we are all of us, without exception, we are curious. We would like to know. But in this particular case, we are condemned not to know. We are condemned never to know.
The scientific search for answers about the end of life has been grounded in the relentless scrutiny of animal and human anatomies.
In the mid-17th century, physicians and experimenters began dissecting live animals for the first time in centuries. And among the earliest discoveries was that the parts of animals died separately. William Harvey, who discovered the circulation of the blood, may have performed the first continuous ventilation of a brain-dead animal in the 1640s when he maintained the heart and lungs of a decapitated rooster for a number of hours by inflating the lungs with a bellows. These kinds of discoveries made it obvious that heart and lungs could live long after the individual organism was no longer an integrated entity. And so what did it mean to say that the individual rooster was alive or dead when its heart and lungs were functioning, but its head was in a wastebasket? In response to those kinds of discoveries, many physicians in the 18th century concluded that there was no way of telling life from death short of actual physical decomposition.
After much debate, medical scientists have achieved definitions of when a human body is finally dead. And still these parameters vary. The death of the heart and lungs is one criterion. In some countries, death of the lower brain is sufficient, but North American doctors only accept the death of the whole brain.
We know a person is medically dead when their whole brain has stopped functioning. There are very strict criteria that are followed, and these are set out by a number of medical authorities. Whole brain death has been a criterion, definition of death for the past 25 years in North America. And it's been well agreed upon by medical authorities, and a very strict criteria by which that definition of whole brain death is applied. So there are no mistakes about when someone's brain dead.
By the time that medical science concluded that human death occurs with brain death, it had also achieved the ability to keep other parts of the body working after the brain had died. This meant a brain-dead body could be used for organ transplantation.
Organ transplantation is yet another threshold area in our lives. Most organ transplants they involve organs that come from people who have died who have sustained head injuries and who are declared dead because they are brain dead. What this means is that they're no longer conscious, their brains are no longer functioning except in a very, very basic level. They require life support in order to keep the lungs going, and therefore, so blood can go through the body and can keep the heart going. They're on a ventilator. As soon as you take them off the ventilator, they're dead as far as we're concerned. But what is happening here is that medicine is saying this is someone who is biologically dead. Is the person socially dead? For example, if I walk into a room and I see someone who I know who is on life support or who is on a ventilator and who, as far as I can tell, still looks like they're alive, but they can't talk to me anymore and they can't respond to me, and if I stroke their hand, they're not going to have any kind of emotional response, is that person still alive or are they dead?
Keeping organs alive as units may fracture our sense of human identity, but it means those organs can be harvested for others. John McBride's life depended on the definition of brain death being applied to a potential heart donor. His heart had deteriorated so badly that he expected to die within 48 hours. Death was an immediate reality.
Well, we looked at death, and death is part of life. It almost seems funny to say death and life are all part of it, but we addressed what was going to happen and what was likely going to happen and what I personally thought for sure was going to happen. And we did have the funeral arrangements pretty well drafted. The death announcement was made. Mary knew where all of the insurance policies were, and we rewrote the wills and checked to make sure the cemetery plot was okay and was ready. And we do have a family plot that has been in our family since the, I guess, 1870s. We just made sure there was enough room in there.
You don't have a very normal body. But if you take somebody, say, for example, with a congenital heart, dying from a congenital heart lesion, in which you feel you could do a heart transplant. When you've transplanted the heart, you have a normal body because you only have heart disease.
In 1967, when the first heart transplants were done, the concept of brain death was presented as a new and revolutionary innovation made necessary by dramatic new technology. But actually, death has been controversial for centuries, and it's rarely been a product simply of new technologies. Definitions of death have been debated and have changed and changed again in response to technology's interaction with culture, with social conditions, with the power of the medical profession, and a variety of other factors.
See, I can't relate to these concepts of brain death, semi-brain death, all this kind of stuff. I don't relate to that stuff because that's a very technical definition of a person. And I don't relate to a person as an EEG tracing. You know, when your EEG is flat, you're brain dead. When your EEG is slow, you're something else. I must say I have great difficulty with it because for me, it's important what the personhood, the mind. The brain is not as important as the mind. And the person is more important. For example, a much more interesting question is, when do I cease to be a person? When do I cease to be me? For example, if I'm in a coma and my brain is dead, I think we'll all agree I cease to be me. What about if I'm wearing a diaper and I have Alzheimer's disease, I'm living in a nursing home and I don't know my name? Do I cease to be me then? Who am I? When does my mind cease to exist? That's a much more interesting question.
To get a heart when 3,760 people are waiting, I think it's incredible odds. It's almost like winning a lottery, only I guess it's bigger than winning a lottery. And the doctor came in and said, "How are you doing?" Well, I said, "I'm, as well as can be expected. I'm exercising, trying to get stronger for when I get a heart." Oh, he said, "You really want a heart?" I said, "Well, what else am I here for? Do I want a heart?" "Yeah, I want a heart." Well, he said, I'm off to a convention in New Orleans tomorrow. I think we've got one. I'll see you up in the operating room in a couple hours. Holy smoke. And I've promised the donor family that I will look after their loved one's heart and that I will pray for him, presumably it's a he, for the rest of my life.
John McBride's heart transplant was successful. Contending with death was postponed in favor of attending to life. He had approached and turned back from that borderland between life and death, a region his heart donor had inhabited.
The dead apparently they lose their individuality. In the sense that we have a person whom we know, a friend of ours, we know all his experiences. Suddenly he dies, and that person who had a name, a personality, is no longer there. Instead of that, we have a cold, unsentient, unresponsive lump of organic matter on the bed. No? Where did that person go? No? And it is in vain that we look behind the curtains and we peek under the bed to see if he's there, or we look out of the window to see where did he go? Where did that person go?
As death remains an enigma, we are drawn to analyzing it, which medical scientists tend to do from a physical rather than metaphysical perspective.
The problem with death in the healthcare system is that death is the enemy. And we are locked in a pitched battle against death. And we're fighting against it all the time, and death is failure. It's the wrong metaphor. It's the wrong approach to death. Death is an inevitable event in all humans' lives. Death is the end of the journey. Death is the destination. Life is the process of living, and death is the destination.
The Lord, the everlasting God, creator of the wide world, grows neither weary nor faint. No one can fathom God's understanding.
Reverend Felicia Thomas has a religious understanding of death, which she brings to her pastoral work of comforting the bereaved and dying. The Reverend herself drew on the comfort of that faith. Her younger brother was killed when the plane he was traveling in was bombed over Lockerbie, Scotland.
They will grow wings like eagles. They will run and not be weary.
This was my youngest brother. His name was Arva Anthony Thomas. We affectionately called him Tony. He had been living in Detroit with my mother, and Detroit was just a terribly, in a lot of ways, dangerous, violent place to be raising a young black male. And so we had a family conference and decided that he would go to Germany and live with my brother and attend school, high school there, which he was doing. And he was coming home from the holidays on Pan Am Flight 109, which originated in Frankfurt, stopped in London, and of course was bombed over Lockerbie. God knows I would have wished to have had him a lot longer, and that I never imagined burying my baby brother. I remember when Tony first died, having this overwhelming question about, why me, why us? It was so senseless. What use could come out of it? And about 6 months after his death, I was called to my first parish in Queens, where I served as interim minister. And in that parish, I had to do my first funeral. And in that moment, when I had to minister to a family that was grieving, and when I had to stand at a pulpit to try to offer some words of comfort and support, I realized that having had the experience of losing somebody close to me was just going to profoundly affect my ministry.
Good part of what we do in society is try to explain to ourselves, to each other, why do these bad things happen? What sense? Is there some hidden plan we don't know about? Is there some reason for these deaths? Or is everything just random, just bad things keep falling upon us? That's the way the meaning question often arises. Why did this person die this particular time? Why did it have to happen? But there's a broader question. Once in a while we kind of sit back and we say, well, why do people die at all? What's the point of it? You know, why is there death? And if we believe in God, and we believe in a God who loves people and is in control of things, well, how can God let that happen? Would God want that to happen? Who dares to read God's mind? Dare we question God? Maybe not. But can we go on without questioning it when these bad things happen? So it's a classic question. And it's a question people have been in a muddle about for centuries. And many of the greatest philosophers have kind of thrown up their hands at it, you know, and gone off to play golf or something instead of dealing with that question. Why does anybody die? So every society has to give an answer to it.
The world's religions have searched for and found their own definitions of death. And many have themes in common. Over time and across the world, people have held the conviction that death is a transition between different manifestations of life.
Well, death and dying has been one of the major issues for religions around the world, how to make sense out of this mysterious experience in which someone who is there and is vital and alive suddenly is no longer, in some sense, there. And so from very ancient days, people have tried to make sense out of death, have tried to figure out where it is that the conscious person goes after this occasion of death, and why does death happen? And there are many myths and legends about the origins of death. So I would say one of the primary goals of religion is to explain what death means and how people can act appropriately in the face of death. What kinds of rituals can ease the person beyond this world into the next world, whatever that next world may be. What kinds of rituals can be created, celebrated, that will help to assuage the grief of those who are left behind. So the search for meaning and the search for ways of ritually handling, accommodating death are very much at the core of religion.
While religion and science have offered theories of death, we test and grapple with their meaning as individuals. Throughout history, one of the most challenging and brutal ways that people have encountered death and tried to make sense of it is through war. Henry Rossi went to war in Vietnam at the age of 17.
I was a point man, and I would lead the troops into a certain area, and this guy had taken my place, and we were crossing a river, and he had taken my position up, and he went over, and we were ambushed by an NVA regiment, and they had us pinned down on a pathway, and this guy was up farther from the rest of the squad, and I guess they had a machine gun pinpointing him, and they would pump a few bullets in him, and he kept on screaming for his mother. oh mommy, come and save me. And it was like, it was unbelievable, the emotion that we were all feeling. And every time somebody made an attempt to rescue this guy, they would shoot some other people. And eventually we pulled him out and he died. We put his body with rifle straps around a bamboo post, and we carried him out with a poncho. And the bamboo post would sway and move as you would walk, so his head would bob up and down. And when you see a human being's face, I mean, death does something to your teeth. Your teeth dry out and they look like wood. And he had multiple bullet wounds in his arms, and every time his arm would fall out, it would just tear me up. I would see all these bullet holes, and like, it haunted me for years because I felt very guilty that it wasn't me that went up there and died.
We expect when we say goodbye to somebody in the morning, we're going to see them in the afternoon. It's the ripping a hole in our illusion that life will continue to go on. It's such a shock to our realization that you can't count upon death. Death is not really playing a game with us. Death is not necessarily going to wait until we've had a long life and used it up and saying, well, I'm ready to go now. Death plays hardball.
Death has this way, I think, of bringing people either closer together or sort of rending them farther apart. And for my family, I think there was very much a way that it brought us together, because it made us all aware of how tomorrow is not promised.
You think you're never gonna die, you're young, and then I'm gonna be 49 in about a week, so that doesn't scare me. I think it's the natural evolution of being a human being. My wife's grandmother just died, who I really loved, and I went to the funeral, and I cried. And in the past, I could never cry. I would never foster any of them emotions of letting tears come forth and let my feelings. So I look at death as a natural process in life. Doesn't intimidate me. I think everybody has to die, and I look forward to it when it comes. But I don't look forward to it as a negative. I don't put any connotation on it from the combat experience. I don't think of death in that way. And I faced death quite a few times. I've had last rites 3 times, and each time I thought I was gonna die, I was very at peace about crossing over, and God just said, hey, it's not your time, and I'm here for a purpose. So I look at death as a very natural evolution of being a human being.
Death enters our lives in many forms: violent, calm, tragic, or as a relief. It is changing and unpredictable, and while we may not know what we could gain from death, we know what we will lose.
Here in the wind, the bushes sobbing, it is the sigh of our forebears. Those who are dead are never gone. They are there in the thickening shadow. The dead are not under the earth. They are in the tree that rustles. They are in the wood that groans. They are in the water that runs. They are in the water that sleeps. They are in the hut. They are in the crowd. The dead are not dead. Those who are dead are never gone. They are in the breast of the woman. They are in the child who is wailing, and in the firebrand that flames. The dead are not under the earth. They are in the fire that is dying. They are in the grasses that weep. They are in the whimpering rocks. They are in the forest. They are in the house. The dead are not dead.
Annenberg Media. For information about this and other Annenberg Media programs, call 1-800-LEARNER and visit us at www.learner.org.